Glory to God. You know, speaking is not just a means of communication. It's also a standard of classification. When I say it's a standard of classification, you see, anything that speaks does so because it is human. You get me? It means it's been classified. You have to be in that class to be able to speak. You have to be human to be able to speak. So speaking is not just something that is identified with man or man does. It places man in a class. You know, apart from speaking, given a classification, speaking, you know, also reveals a level of intelligence. So it reveals a level of civilization. You know, that's why other species do not speak, because they are not as civilized as man, or their eyes are not as opened as man. You get me? That's why they do not speak. That's why even in the human race, see, the better a person speaks, the more he's seen as enlightened. Or the more words a person knows, the more vocabulary a person has, that person is deemed to be more enlightened than one who has a less repertoire or collection of words. You know, so speaking is deeper. You know, God just didn't allow man, or God just didn't make man to speak. I mean, it wasn't something just by the way, or God just, you know, created and said, oh, let man speak. It wasn't something loose. There was a purpose attached to it. There was a revelation attached to why man speaks. All right, praise God. God is the first kind of being to speak. How do I know that? Because in the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So God is the first kind of being to speak, or to use words. That's why when you study Genesis, you realize it says, and God said, and God said, and God said. So God is the first being that put words to use, or spoke, or or made utterance. I don't want to say had the ability, because ability itself has no ability except of God. You know, so God is the first kind of being that put words to use, right? Because he placed himself into words. That was why he could speak himself into manifestation. That's why the Word put on flesh. Do you get me? That's why the Word put on flesh. You would get a better understanding to why I am giving you these foundations. Glory to God. All right, so I sent this verse earlier. That's Genesis 1:26. So let me read it and then explain something to you. He says, and God said, let us make man in our image, like us, and let him have rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over everything, and over every living thing which goes flat on the earth. What I read was BBE. KJV says, and God said, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. You know, I know you have never thought about this verse in the way I'm going to share it with you. But I told you, Revelation is progressive. You know, you can never exhaust the light of God's word. There are things you've heard over and over and over. And when a stronger light is placed on it, you realize, wow, there was something much more I did not know. You see, I told you God was the first kind of being to speak, because words originated from God. And do not forget that God He has no beginning, He has no end. He does not live in time. So God, out of time, knew in time there was going to be a creator. Or He was going to create or bring a being into existence. You see, and He says, and God said, let us make man in our image. God knew He was going to bring a being in existence that would be in His image and in His likeness. You know, and only God was the kind of being that speaks or communicates that particular way. You know, so God, and if that being was going to be like God, or be in His image and in His likeness, obviously then it means that that being is also going to speak. Do you get what I'm saying? So He could not give speech to any other species because they were not in His image and likeness. Yeah, you see, I told you speech or words are for classification. Or speaking classifies. You know, so God knew there was a time to come that there was going to be a creation that will be in His image and likeness. And if that creation is going to be in His image and likeness, then He had to also set aside the privilege and prerogative of speaking for that creature or for that creation. I'm not even talking about the new creature. I'm talking about man. Yeah, because man, the new creature is the new species of man. That's another thing altogether. So I'm talking about man in general, new creature or old creature. I mean, I'm talking about the species of man. You know, so God set aside speaking because man was going to be created in His image and likeness. So no other creation could be given the prerogative or privilege to speak because they were not created in the image and likeness of God. Why? Because only words or speaking originated with God. Glory. All right, so I just sent Genesis chapter 1. I want to show you something. Verse 3 says, God said. You know, that's my focus. God said. Verse 6 says, God said. 11 says, 9 says, God said. 11 says, God said. 14, God said. 20, God said. 22, God blessed them, saying. 24, God said. 26, God said. So how did God create? How did God exercise His power of creation. How? He spoke. He spoke. He spoke. Now 28 says, God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the bird. How were they going to have dominion? They were going to have dominion the same way God exercised power. When he said have dominion, he was delegating them into a position of authority. That's why I gave you that explanation earlier. And how did he himself? Because if he was creating them in his image and likeness, then they were supposed to look like him and function like him. So if he brought things into existence, or he exercised absolute control over what he wants to see by speaking and bringing it into reality, then going to have dominion or exercising authority over those things obviously is going to be by the same way, because it has to do with power. But you see, because he delegated man, he gave man a responsibility. He says have dominion. And if the only way he brought those things into manifestation was by speaking, then the only way man himself was going to have dominion was also by speaking. You know, that was why man was also, or God also had to give the man the ability of speaking words. Why? Because he gave man a responsibility. You see, and the thing he gave man responsibility over itself originated through words. So it can only be maintained and controlled by words also. Glory. Yeah, so it's not by chance that the species of man speaks. It's not by chance. Because creating, maintaining, and destroying is coded in speaking. We are speaking beings. Glory to God.